There are 3 mandatory questions in the toolkit about making sure that records are maintained appropriately. These focus on how long records are retained for, and when that period of retention is at its end, what happens to that information and how it is disposed of. And that's true whether the data is paper or electronic. So if I open up question 1.4.1, this question about having a data retention schedule. One of the principles of data protection law is to make sure that personal information is kept for no longer than is necessary. And that's true for finance information, staff, care records, everything. So it's really important, therefore, that you have a timetable in place to help you manage this. And there are guidelines for health and social care around minimum data retention periods. And the toolkit has a link here to the NHS Records Management Code of Practice. And this is your best guide to follow about how long to keep records for. Oh, and also, Digital Care Hub, there's a template record keeping policy which you can download and adapt for your organisation. So assuming you have a retention policy, you can tick that box and say, for example, we comply with the NHS Records Management Code of Practice. There, that's that question done. Now, the other 2 questions in the toolkit are about disposal of records. There's one if you use external third parties to destroy your records or equipment for you. And there's another question that you should answer, which is about destroying records yourselves. We'll look at this one first. And if your organisation uses third parties for getting rid of records or equipment, then you must have a contract in place with those companies, and you should review that contract every year. You may use contractors to shred paper, wipe old computers or phones. That's the common thing. But you need to think about all of your records and all of your equipment. So what about if you've got leased photocopiers, for instance? What happens to that information if it holds some of that things on its memory? And what about archive records in the software that you use? If these are held in the cloud on an internet system, where do they go and how do you completely get rid of them? So it's important to find out what your supplier does in these circumstances so that you can be completely confident in your arrangements with third parties when they destroy personal data for you. Now, there are some requirements set out in data protection law about these sorts of contracts, and that's to make sure that the information is securely wiped and taken off the systems or that paper data is securely shredded. And there is advice about it on the Digital Care Hub. There's a link to this advice here, and you can see it has some links to the standards, the BISA, the Bit Security Industry Association standards that contractors should meet about destroying data. And that should include that they have a destruction certificate of the information that they destroy, and that you have a contract in place that enables you to periodically audit them if you so want to, so that you can make sure that they're doing it properly. Now, with this question, there is the option to write not applicable in case that you don't use any third parties to destroy your records or your equipment, because it might be that you do all of that destruction in-house in your own organisation. This is what question 1.4.3 is about. And if you do this in-house, you must take care to do it to the right standard as well, because there's always people out there that can retrieve data from old devices that you may otherwise throw away. And there are regulations about waste electronic equipment. And even if you've got paper documents and you use a shredder, then that shredder must meet British standards. So you can use data wiping software to remove data from devices. There's lots of ones available online, but if you're unsure, this is one area that's really good to get technical advice, as companies can wipe disks and equipment for you and give you a certificate to prove it. We shred all our own records to British standards, or whatever else it is that you're going to do. Now, just my final note of caution about this: if your staff use their own smartphones or other devices, and they have personal data stored on them, or ways that they can get online and access work personal data, then you need to make sure that these personal devices are also covered in your processes, and that you think about that when you delete data and dispose of old equipment. So once you've completed that one, just save it here.